call this work to meeting, the May 5th Housing Committee at 1 p.m. And our first item is the approval of the agenda. And I do have one late item that I'd like to add. Evan Parliament would like to be added to our agenda as a late item. So if we can slot that into number 1, new business.
Doesn't someone have to second it though?
Oh,
No, I don't.
I don't have a copy.
Well, it's electronic.
okay. Well, I want to add that amendment to it to get.
I just think
Okay, thank you. Do I have a mover?
You see the event.
Brian Airy.
Like your Outlook account.
Do I have seconder? Siobhan?
Sir?
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yes.
Could I have another late agenda item?
Yes.
The guy that's supposed to know.
I was supposed to ask that question.
Matt Baumgartner resigned last Friday, and so we're shy 1 member. So could we maybe put that on the agenda as who's going to be our new member?
Just did. We just did. As Evan Parliament is going to speak to.
That's what we just. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Now you do. Okay. Approval of the minutes. There is a recommendation that the minutes of the Housing Committee held on April the 7th be adopted. Do I have a mover? Welcome. Do I have a seconder? Ryan? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The housing strategy, I'm going to recommend that
I understand. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and to add to that, I'm going to say, I think that, and parking is key. So in the Quesnel the sample that we had, they did talk about changing parking requirements from having 2 to 1. And I feel like parking is really key in our community. So I think that we leave that. I think we still need to adhere to the parking, ensuring that we've got off-street parking for whatever development's going to go on in the residential. I want to. The land on Temple. So there's vacant parcel there. I think that would be good to be identified as a possible multi-unit component.
If I could speak to that.
Yes, Malcolm?
Sycamoose Housing Society did a professional appraisal on that, and that parcel's been subdivided from 2.83 acres to it's now a 2-acre parcel. And on that 2 acres, according to the professional appraisal, it can house 54 units.
Okay, good.
Could I ask a question of Ryan and perhaps discussion from that? So when you say changes to multifamily, how do you envision that? So how the OCM works, just to put it into context. So we currently have a medium density designation. This is all low density. So we're talking about upping the density. So currently this is our medium density area right here. And then high density is town center. So when you talk about upping this, do you mean like what a town center would allow? Or do you mean more like what our medium density would do? So that would be like, say, maybe 4 to 5 units.
I'm thinking mostly like medium density, like these larger lots could accommodate maybe, you know, not just 2 units, but 3, 5, 6 units on a lot. And I think given what's happened with property values and whatnot, our new vision of medium density, you know, of even low density housing is going to include a lot of lots that include ideally 2 homes and not just 1 home. So I think the definitions are kind of changing over time in a sense as property becomes so much more expensive.
Yeah, there is a working emerging theory out there right now with planners about mitigating property value by just upzoning all low density. So then it keeps the land value within range for a developer to actually purchase it. Otherwise, the land is worth so much more. Like these one-off little sites that we have a few of around town, they're worth way more because they are one-offs. They're all there is, right? So is it possible to fine-tune this a little? Are there sites within our single-family areas where they're vacant currently, and so there's an easy opportunity for someone to build? Or are there sites that are kind of ripe for redevelopment that anyone is aware of?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's one on Highway 97. Is it okay if I get up?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's called the Brown property.
It's the one next to the Chinese food house. Okay.
This triangle here. This, yeah, it's 0.483 of an acre. There's one house on it, but yeah, so I would call it, I guess, time for redevelopment. So the access is off of Duke. This little street here is Duke.
Oh.
But because it's on a little tangent here, I think it's right to change the access off of Trans-Canada.
Maybe a frontage road.
No, it would be a right in, right out. Protected. It's perfect for a protected T intersection. That's close to 5 acres of development, and you wouldn't want that traffic running through. cul-de-sacs on it.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's an older home on it, right?
One single older home on there. I think it's actually Judy Moore's mother, Mrs. Brown, I think.
Okay.
I'm aware of a vacant lot right here. You could probably fit maybe 3 townhouses on. And there's another one at the corner of Maple and U. Might be Xing off the wrong one, but.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a vacant lot on,
There's Shuswap and Finlayson.
Bruce and Warner, Spruce and U too, across from Mom's place. That one's vacant. I mean, it's owned by no.
where's that one?
Across Spruce and U.
Bruce and you?
No, there's a house in there now.
No, there's not.
Oh, right beside that
Yeah.
one, yeah. Well, I think,
There wasn't a couple days ago.
Corner of Shuswap and Finlayson. So it's in downtown, but it would be
what's that one?
for a small multi.
Yeah, that one sold recently.
Did it? Okay, good.
Right back here. They want to do a hotel, but who knows?
What's that one crescent off a shoe shop there closer to Capel?
Martin or Martinson?
No, down, it's further south.
Hillier?
No, just off a shoe shop.
Sorry, I'm saying the wrong word.
Yeah.
It's this one in here.
It's a crescent. It comes.
Chapman?
What's that called?
Oh, it's that White Pines, is it the,
No,
no?
you can access it off of either Martin or
Chapman Crest.
or shoe shop.
Chapman Crescent.
Chapman
It's got
Crescent.
that little U.
Yeah, there's a vacant lot right on the corner of Chapman Crescent there. Tree
Oh,
lot.
right at the U.
Yeah, yeah.
Hard to see. This one here could maybe potentially could be rejigged as well. This, when they close this one access to the highway, it's the corner of White Pines Crescent. Maybe we could get some land out of there if we moved the road over. It kind of comes up from down in here. Parallel. Like
Bunch of trees in it?
there's just a road in it right now. It looks like it's
Okay.
part of the highway.
Oh, okay.
There's some barricades where they closed off. So where you used to run across from Capel, across the 97A, there was another access
Okay.
south of it that was closed, and now it runs up into Capel.
Okay.
It's kind of a bigger chunk there.
Yeah, council was looking at that as potential maybe for boat trailer parking because of the boat launch on Capel. Once they upgrade that boat launch, and that's fairly close for parking boat trailers and vehicles. That one on White Pine Crescent.
So it may or may not be up. We just identify sites.
Yep, brainstorming.
There's this one here that's sort of attached to the Parksville development. That's right across from our Wilson Centennial Park. There's another one right across from the mall. It's actually zoned multifamily next to the Chinese food restaurant on Eagle Pass Way. So Parksville Street and Eagle Pass.
Yeah, there was a developer that was going to build like a 6-plex in a townhouses, right?
Yeah.
Or like a row house, and then
Rumor is that, yeah,
that would be like 3 years ago, maybe? Something
about
like
that, yeah.
yeah.
So that's changed hands in about 3 years, and the new owner was going to do townhouses, yeah.
Hmm.
There's also a half-acre parcel right across from the bottle depot that has a small little house on it, like 600 square feet. Grant Wilkins.
Brent's, yeah.
Yeah. Grant's dad is getting close, Ted's getting close to assisted living requirements.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah, they're looking, actually, they're waiting.
yeah, they're on the wait
Wait,
list, yeah. So that half-acre parcel right across from the bottle depot, I know the current owner
Is that in next to that little tiny cabin that was recently bought and renovated?
There's a little section in there with,
The little house?
yeah, it's a tiny little house.
this is,
Across from Shelley Greer's.
it's the second property in off of
It's brown with orange.
Finlayson and Shuswap. It's the second property in.
Mhm.
Oh, it's actually this one. Okay.
And it's a half-acre lot, so you could get a, 6-plex or something on that.
Okay. There's also this. This right here is zoned R4, just like Bayview. It's just sitting there. it's off the end of McLean McPherson. There's an unopened road dedication to it.
I looked at that and the maps that you provided show that there's a little bit of a bench there too, I think.
Yeah, there is right kind of along here.
Top side of it, yeah.
There's more level. And then there's a bench here. So then something could be built into the hillside. There could be like a wall neighborhood in there.
Well, that example you give us for the housing in Invermere where they had they called them a quadplex, but they're designed for a slope. So you got 2 entries on the top side of the slope and 2 entries on the bottom side of the slope. So it doesn't even really look like a fourplex. It hardly even looks like a duplex. So that property would probably suit that because it's sloped a bit. There's also some property just adjacent to the industrial park that's not identified in any of the mapping that you've done.
Here by the Hillier Industrial?
No, like butting right up to the property on the cul-de-sac of the industrial park.
So we've got an industrial park down here off McLean McPherson. There's Northern Court. There's Titus. There's Hillier Road.
I think it's to the Hillier Road East. Is it Hillier Road East you're talking about? Next to the,
Right behind the maintenance road and bridge maintenance yard, back in that cul-de-sac in there, right where we're putting our bioenergy plant.
Oh, okay. Thompson Place. Okay.
So there's a piece of property in there that's been removed from the ALR years ago with a condition that it has to be used for affordable housing, as far as I can.
Which chunk is that?
There's a small little piece in there.
do you have a map? Here, there's a 2 little,
I got one.
oh,
It's actually, I think it was because Greg Kylo offered it to council at one time for about
that piece. It's here.
400,000, but it could be for housing.
It is Hillier Road. So where is, here's Old Town. So it's back, this is here, this is part of his land, the TA.
I think it might be this parcel right there, maybe. That one?
No, this is where the structures is. TA Structures is
Yeah,
all
the
in
factory,
here.
yeah.
So I think this is in behind the cul-de-sac, or
Okay.
is it over here?
No, I think it's, I think
it's this end.
I think it's just right behind the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Greg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long ago.
That piece right there. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Did you see it in the map there?
And that was in conversation, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes, yeah, it was. So it would be good. It would be an idea for,
Okay.
for development for staff housing and it's,
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's
Well, and Sycamore is expanding, like it's a lot. I mean, Sycamore is expanding and I think we
is.
have to expand, get people start going outside our main borders, because if we keep telling people everyone's living in town, they're gonna all want to be in town and our town's getting bigger, right? It's like the mobile home parks out by the storage area and stuff. People are getting comfortable with that. Yeah. Urbanizing as much as we can that the mountains will let us.
And then way above,
There's one there too, right off of Baby. It's got a house on it. That's multi-family.
Okay,
Down there. Where's the other one, Malcolm?
across the channel and higher up in elevation than the Shoe Shop Villas. And it's Crown land, but it's nice and flat out there. So it doesn't have road access and it doesn't have services.
Just interrupt you.
But it's
a few minutes.
Crown land.
I want to make it.
Much cheaper.
Wait, did MOTI buy this one? MOTI bought one of these.
can
private
we pause for
past
just a
there,
moment?
there's Crown land.
Can we pause for just a moment, Terry?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt the meeting. I've got to go to another meeting. So Matt has removed himself from the committee. I'll be talking with Jen as we have another 6 or 7 people lined up. We'll make another choice, and so that we'll fill the committee up. And Evan will be in sometime, I think, in order to explain a meeting that we had with BC Housing yesterday. Malcolm was at it as well. So anyway, I've got to go to another
Okay.
meeting, but I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, and we'll interrupt whenever somebody shows up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so no road, no services, but it's Crown land. It's up there somewhere, yeah.
Is it that really large parcel?
It's literally top of the hill.
One of them is Crown, and one of them is MOTI.
MOTI is the one that they bought off of
It comes right.
Richardson.
So it's possible maybe, so the IR, there's a reserve land here. There's a potential for a partnership with First Nations to get access to servicing up there at some point.
Or there's a road that comes off the Trans-Canada just before city limits that
I heard they were closing that.
goes in there.
This little guy that comes up into, there's like a little house or something up
He little, yeah, winds up there.
I heard they were closing it all up.
Yeah, it's not a great access.
Yeah, okay.
Is there an opportunity to use the Brown sites? I mean, I only know of one in particular in town, but is there any way we can partner or get grants through the district to clean up those sites and be able to use them for something? Just asking, you know?
Actually, and that might be a statement we put into our strategies. It's like work with landowners who are, you know, seeking to move their more industrial uses out of the town center to maybe for land swaps or something like that.
Yeah.
To acquire brownfield sites to support housing, right? Because there's been some conversations with an industrial property like right here at the end of Main Street and Riverside. He's outgrown that. He wants to move. So there's potentially,
right.
So there's a few sites like that kind of in this area where they're just really tiny lots and they're not, the bulk of their business isn't there. They have to move it somewhere else. Yeah, certainly have a strategy.
What site were you thinking of?
Well, I was thinking of the corner of Riverside and Finlayson. I know that it's often used for just trailer parking.
Joe Kozak.
Yes. So we could make good use of that land as a community, whether it's actual housing or it's a moving somebody else out of what could be a good housing site onto a more commercial space too. So just opportunity.
Strategy to acquire brownfield sites for
for development.
So there's like a land bank.
Right.
Is that the old gas station?
It is the old gas station. So like, could you do commercial on a lower level and then have 4 suites on top of it? Or maybe it's just all commercial. Maybe it's 3 stories and I know we don't want to go too high, but.
Certainly town center or something.
Yeah.
The consultant that originally started our zoning dialogue that suggested this happens more in very areas where you have flex units. So while you need housing until the market catches up and until our commercial space or need for it catches up, you have this unit that can do both. Yeah, there's all kinds of interesting things.
There's another one that should be redeveloped, in my opinion, on Temple, 217 Temple. It's the property's right adjacent to the Shoe Shop Lanes complex. It's a property right next door.
Oh, right.
Peggy Zagar owned it and she passed away and her family's in the estate probate process of selling that right now.
Is it on the north side or south side?
It's on the south side of Temple.
Is it a bigger lot right next to the strata?
Yes, 217 Temple. And it's 0.54 of an acre. So, I mean, with the density next door, Shoe Shop Lanes, that would be almost a no-brainer.
Prime.
And it's a 1972 double wide on a concrete foundation. It's pretty much a tear down.
That's a great example, like a property that should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one, really.
Across the street from that, I see that there's been a new home went up, right?
That's 222 Temple.
Yeah, that's
right next to that.
Yeah.
That's Howard's property.
Okay.
That's one I talked about earlier. It's 2 acres.
He's not putting anything on that though.
No, I'm not thinking Temple. I'm thinking Martin Street. There was a mobile home, I think, that got torn down and there's a new construction home on there.
Oh, that's Mike Gallo building that.
Oh, is it? Okay. Nice.
That's the shop you see so far.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so other ones, like if we're talking about other ones that we know are available around, like there's these right here.
That 217 is actually for sale. Yeah.
All three of these apparently are for sale, just from people calling, asking about them.
Those are in the ALR. So what does that, what implicates?
They'd be a lower priority example.
Right.
However, I mean, how the Parksville one happened was
right
through an ALC process where they would allow it to be moved where housing was being provided. I don't know.
I think, yeah. Well, and I think that area makes total sense to build out that flat valley area.
That one for 217, they're asking 450 right now.
This one?
No, the one we spoke about on Temple.
450.
It's for sale right now by owner for 450.
For half an acre.
Well, there's a double wide mobile on a concrete foundation.
Anyway,
But that's, yeah, the prices right now.
okay.
The one next to Peggy's is also for sale, but it's on the other side, on the west side. And it's a 0.23 of an acre and it's a modular and it's for 700,000.
Once I bought my place, I just stopped looking at house prices.
Yeah.
If we're
You're like a book of knowledge here with property. I like it. Yeah, that's good.
There's another page.
Okay.
One if we're okay to move forward. I did try to print this, but this didn't want to work with it. So this one we're looking at, let's put together a list of providing housing, right? So geographic constraints, so, you know, a lot of our available land from looking at our map is sold, right? To make it more expensive to develop. Here. That way, this one up here, this is actually multifamily as well, around that strata. I'm going to just circle that one off. The CBZ zone is multifamily.
It's not fully built out. Yeah. It's not fully built out, is it?
No, it wasn't. And it's because of the steep slope and access and getting services up there.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, that is a case in point. So one of our constraints is that a lot of the vacant green field is steeply sloped, or it's in the ALR, right? Right. ALR, steep slope.
No service.
Servicing and geotechnical costs. And then the other thing we were talking about is, say, brownfield sites that have like little older homes on them seem kind of out of range in terms of making a development feasible for a private developer to do.
Yeah, like Grant's house.
Yeah.
Or Grant or Peggy's place.
Yeah.
They're both half-acre lots.
Too.
Huh?
Dot Renault's place is going to come up too out on Kerr. Dot Renault out on Kerr Road.
Oh.
Okay, and then, I mean, another one that we're all aware of, and I think we just X those properties out of our minds because we know it's land, it's locked up.
Right.
We got huge chunks of undeveloped land that are just kind of locked up in private ownership and aren't really going anywhere.
Well,
Where is that?
Zoning is a barrier there because that's zoned highway commercial.
It's not zoned, it's designated.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's zoned rural, right? But our town center land use designation does support high and medium densities. So a change, amending that land use to support housing densities.
Okay.
They're on property, on land that's adjacent to our town center. So this is our town center, basically Finlayson.
Okay.
And Riverside down here roughly is our town center. So anything abutting it, our OCP supports adding density in those land uses.
So between.
So we're not completely locked up.
What about that the rule about a landowner has to develop over a certain time period, or the costs to not develop it escalates. I'm not explaining myself properly.
No, I've seen tools like that. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know some places have put them in, have used that and said, yeah, if you're not developing, then
Your taxes escalate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good incentive for developing the lands that haven't been developed and they're just sitting vacant, and when we need so much in our community.
Councillor Anderson has brought that up.
Yeah.
I think that didn't that turn out to be something unique to Vancouver and their charter city. They don't follow the Local Government Act. They follow their charter from the Queen, which gives them all these other powers that other local governments don't have, because they were like a founding Canada early colonial days state.
Another barrier is funding. Like we identified, like Peggy's Place or Grant's Place. They're both half-acre lots. They're already zoned medium density, but they're sitting very underutilized, but not right for a developer. But if a local government wanted to do that and partner with a nonprofit like Habitat or senior housing or whoever, funding is a barrier. So we can change some bylaws locally to direct more funding into our housing fund through the resort tax. We're now allowed to divert some money from there into housing.
So for that, we'd have to be a resort municipality. Or are we talking about short-term rentals? There's a PST tax that applies to short-term
No,
rentals.
that resort, not the resort tax.
The MRDT tax,
MRDT.
but they've now allowed that to be designated to housing. You can contribute some of it to housing.
We can change our bylaws to have some of the MRDT into our housing fund.
Yes, and yes, I agree. And if you guys didn't bring it up, I was going to during our strategy session.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So our current bylaw, I think we're only doing 2%, which goes into tourism. And that's supposed to come off short-term rentals as well as hotels. But we can also take an additional 1%, but we'd have to amend our bylaw to do it. That would go into our housing reserve fund. We currently don't take it.
Okay. Can we interrupt our session? And Evan, you want to speak to us?
I'm doing coffee right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm in no rush.
Okay. All right.
That's actually a barrier because the district is pretty much tapped out for helping nonprofits move forward with housing.
Yeah. So another way of looking at funding, so if we were to turn that into an opportunity for barrier, we could then look at working with partners who have access to different funds and we do. So we can, as a district, a local government, we can apply to different grants and funds. And then another partner, say, is the St. Louis Housing Society, could apply to funds that are specific for them, for nonprofits, as opposed to local governments, and put some money together. Kind of like the relationship we have for the Main Street property here.
Right.
They're not without their bumps, but it's a way of putting together lumps of funding.
Would there be an opportunity, and this is really maybe outside the box, but of having a landowner still keep a vested interest in a project for their legacy or their ongoing or their retirement, like being part of that partnership? So not selling the land, keeping part. I'm just thinking as a mix.
There's a newer tool that there's lots of encouragement to explore called land trusts.
Okay.
So to make that work, it has to be like a nonprofit society to protect people's interests, right? So land is owned by the district, an actual land trust, right? And then people would build and own the homes. but the land itself
Okay.
needs to be in a trust. And what that does is reduce the cost. So it reduces taxes for them. It reduces the cost of actually building something because they don't have to buy the land. It does all these things. So it is a partnership for sure. Okay.
And that land is protected with a covenant, a 219 covenant with some language?
It falls under some other legislation.
Oh,
Land
okay.
trusts. Yeah.
But it's protected on title.
So they talked about doing that, for example, with mobile home parks to prevent them from people being basically evicted from affordable housing and it will be developed for multifamily or single family homes. So it's all part of the goal. So think about it. There's one way up here. I haven't been to it, but I've heard that it's not in great shape up here and it's privately owned.
Gavel Trailer Park.
So
I've been kicked out of there.
could that be a risk? Could that be a risk? And there's this guy here, there seems to be very well maintained. But it's also the land is privately owned as well. And then there's also, we have in some cases, a few zones that allow for single family lots. They specifically allow mobile homes because our zoning doesn't allow people to do mobile homes anywhere else, which if you're trying to do affordability, it's kind of a shame.
Right.
Yet we could lose these properties over time, right? Because those mobile homes could be replaced with single family home. Well, now that property is out of someone's price for sure.
Right.
Because it's a stick built house as opposed to I think a lot of the ones in here are actually old park models.
On Elliott, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in here, there's some of them.
Martin too, right?
Martin. Yeah, but Elliott's down
Yeah.
on 97 there. Yeah, there's mainly older mobile homes on there.
Okay, are you ready, Evan?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for providing me an opportunity to hopefully clarify why you've had a resignation on the board. Have you dealt with, I assume you accepted it for information, the resignation letter?
We haven't got there yet.
You haven't got there yet?
I don't think
It's not on, it wasn't on the
it's
agenda.
not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Seen it?
Yes.
Okay,
I don't think Ryan has.
I'm not. So I got a copy of it. So from Matt Baumgartner, who was appointed to this board and officially resigned last week. I think it's important that this board understand how that happened and why it happened, because it's reached a pivotal point where the district has to do something in terms of breaking this logjam between Eagle Valley, DOS, Habitat for Humanity, 417-425 Main Street. In January, I'm just looking at the emails, I reached out to Dylan Houlihan, who represents Urban Systems, who's the consultant representing Eagle Valley. And I was in discussions with Habitat for Humanity, who the district of Sicamous has entered into a MOU to build 54 units on the front part, the Main Street frontage part of 417-425, all of the stuff you folks know. When I asked Dylan for a simple map, the map that he had presented, several slide decks to both council, Eagle Valley, etc., I asked for a simple map to show Habitat where the 16 units are being proposed. The 16 units that represent multifamily, disabled, low income, etc. I didn't get a response. I waited 3 months on a simple request for a map. And I'm saying to myself, that's a little bizarre. I'm asking for something I've already seen. This is something we actually generated, but they had polished up when they did their PowerPoint presentation. And I finally reached out to him after 3 months and I said, hello, question mark. Oh, sorry, Evan. Got your message. I've been busy. Not sure if I understand your question. Not sure if I'm comfortable in releasing a map right now. Eagle Valley hasn't had a chance to meet, and I think you should direct your question to the chair. So I said to myself, well, that's a little bizarre even coming from Urban Systems. So then I reached out to Jen Carsoso, who's Urban Matters, which is the subsidiary of Urban Systems. They handle their social programs. And Jen was instrumental in bringing the application to fruition. She worked very closely with myself and Brenda and TA Structures when we submitted our RFP to bring affordable housing to Sicamous back in 2018. In September 2018, we were awarded the 3.6 million. And it was the district and Jen Carsosa who was critical in obtaining that funding. And so I reached out to Jen and I said, Jen, I need to talk to you about this frustration I'm having with Urban Systems. Jen had removed herself from the project. She was involved in other projects, so she wasn't really involved, and I didn't get a response from Jen. Now I'm getting very frustrated. We, the district, are providing the land, and I can't get simple answers to simple questions.
And services.
And services, and all the fees and charges waived, and all the staff time, and I don't even have the courtesy of a response. So it was clear to me that they're not interested in what the DOS has to say. They answer to their client, and they believe, Urban Systems, that their client is Eagle Valley. Forget the district. That's my read on it. I could be wrong, but that's the perception. So then I asked Jen for a phone call. This was a month ago. Her grandmother had passed away, and she had asked for some time, and I said, no problem. So a month after, I reached out to again, and I said, Jen, are we going to talk? And she says, Evan, Dylan had already sent you an email. I suggest you talk to Dylan. Now, when I reached out to Jen the day before and said, can we talk? There's no question she automatically went to Dylan. And at 10:30 that night, Dylan wrote a long email on why this project is stalled. And I don't know if you've seen the email. I know Malcolm and I have. And I read the email and I just went, in my opinion, this is just an ATM machine for Urban Systems. They are not interested or care to talk to the district about anything. And when Jen basically blew me off for the third and final time, I said to myself, I'm done. So that's when I talked to council. Let's go straight to BC Housing. Because despite what I think is happening, I'm hearing things like when I'm talking to Greg Kylo, for example, and I say, Greg, has anyone reached out to you on possibly TA Structures being involved in affordable housing? Basically, you manufacture these modular units. He was somewhat confused. He wasn't really sure who's running the show, whether it's Urban Systems, is it Eagle Valley, is it the district, is that Habitat? So I basically explained the whole thing, and I had Bill Miller reach out to Greg, who he did. Bill did reach out to Greg. Greg tried to reach out to Eagle Valley, got nowhere. And I'm reading in Dylan's email, his update, that they're going to tender, and they're going to hire an architect, and they're not talking to TA Structures. They're just following BC Housing procurement regs. And because they're based out of Kamloops, I don't think they have any knowledge of what's going on locally. And then we reach out to Eagle Valley. Both Malcolm and I attended that meeting and suggested we share some of the geotech works and some of the environmental works that are required on both their lands, our lands, and 200 Main Street, which is the home of the Shuswap Healing Center. No response, not interested in sharing costs. They're going to do their own thing. And I don't know what a geotech's going to cost on the Eagle Valley lands for the 20 units of seniors housing. But I do know what the quote was that we were given by a Kelowna contractor to bring a geotech firm to do 200 Main, and that was $15,000 for one visit. So why would Eagle Valley be charged $15,000? Why would we be charged $15,000? Let's get the same company to do it, one on Monday and one on Wednesday, whatever. No interest. So let me get right to the punchline. Yesterday, we met with BC Housing. And we met with Shane Ramsey, the CEO. We met with John McEwen, and we met with, I think it's Travis, I believe. 3 members of higher ups of BC Housing. And we basically, instead of, it wasn't a bitch session, it wasn't me repeating what I just told you, it was, we have a solution. We want to bring a solution to the table because we are now 3+ years into this and we've seen nothing other than meetings and discussion. And I should note, and I found this out this week, if you're familiar with the fairgrounds in Salmon Arm, they have built affordable housing. They have units available and they have units now rented. They received the same grant on the same day in the same month in the same year as we did. And I think they have over 90 units that are already built. So clearly there's a problem. So when we met with BC Housing, our solution, and I've got copies because we've written a second letter to John McEwen outlining what the district is suggesting we do to break this logjam. So rather than criticizing anymore and being frustrated with the consultants, we're taking the approach, we think we have an idea. And so I want to share that with the committee. It's got the full blessing of council. Malcolm can talk about it. We crafted the letter yesterday as a result of the meeting. The meeting went very well. We explained the whole situation. And when we did, and you'll see the details in the letter, they basically said, looks good to me, and let us talk to Eagle Valley. So our goal was to have BC Housing meet and discuss our proposal with Eagle Valley, not us meet with Eagle Valley. Because the anecdotal narrative that I hear constantly is Eagle Valley cannot stand the district of Sicamous. They don't want nothing to do with the district of Sicamous. And now I've accepted that. And I want nothing to do with their consulting team and trying to find a home and fix these 16 units that I'll talk about in the letter. So we went straight to BC Housing and pitched our proposal, at which time I'll share with you. I don't mind if this gets out because Eagle Valley is going to hear about it anyways, but you probably want to wait a couple of weeks before you share it with too many people. But this council has decided to go public and be active in this solution to break this logjam. So I will hand it out. I'll have you read it, and then I can answer any questions you may have.
Just on a bit of a background. So the letter that Dylan sent, a page and a half, but if you condense it and the Reader's Digest version or the dummy it down, basically what he said is the environmental's done, the archaeological assessment's done, which I think we took the lead on anyhow because it's an overlapping property. And they're at the stage of drafting an RFP to put out to procure an architect. And when Evan was asking for just the siting, where is the building going to go, the 16 units of housing, Dylan said that he's not comfortable with sharing that information with us, even though we're partners, because they're in the middle of hiring an architect, which the front end of hiring an architect is drafting the RFP to put it out. That's about a 3-month process to put out the RFP, get the responses back, shortlist them, and start dealing with the lead proponent. So he said, we have to wait for us to get an architect on board, for them to confirm that where we're suggesting the footprint's going to be, that in fact it can go there. Well, it's a flat piece of ground. It's pretty stable. There's no issues there. But so they won't give us a map like Evan's been looking for. Where are these buildings going? There's 16 units. And in Dylan's letter, drafted at 10:30 in the evening, said, we've run out of money, so we're stopping putting resources to this project until we can get approval from BC Housing to get more funding. And I think they've spent between $250,000 and $300,000 so far. Not Eagle Valley Senior Citizens Housing Society. This is a direct contract between BC Housing and Urban Matters, Urban Systems sort of thing. So $300,000 in, we're asking for, where's these 16 units going in? They can't do that. And Dylan says, we're not putting any more resources to this until BC Housing releases some more funding. So it's a gain pros. So just a little background there.
So I'll let you read our proposal. I'll take questions and then I'll talk about the resignation letter. Okay, so when Jen refused to meet with me and basically directed me to meet with Dylan, I had told her, I'm sorry, and these were my words, that ship has sailed, we're going to BC Housing. So I told her point blank that because I knew she would update Eagle Valley and let Rona Martin, the chair, and Eagle Valley know that the district's going straight to BC Housing. So Rona Martin tried to call me and asked why we're meeting with BC Housing. I said, I'm not doing this over the phone. We need to sit down and discuss this one-on-one. She refused to meet with me. She gave me excuses. We never had that meeting. I am convinced. Do I know it for sure? No, I'm convinced 5% that when Matt Baumgartner heard that the DOS is going to BC Housing rather than talking to Eagle Valley, he resigned. Okay. I think Matt's intentions are honorable. I thought he would be a good member on this committee, but he is clearly in the camp of Eagle Valley blaming the district for everything. And when we laid it out with BC Housing, we're not the enemy here. We're trying to provide you land. We're trying to get this thing going, but we're just met with this pettiness. And that's what it is, folks. It's just pettiness. It's silliness. And all we want is for an opportunity, no matter, an opportunity to get this project up and running. And that in the end, the community loses. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm indifferent who manages. I think it should be Eagle Valley, who manages and operates the units. I want to get this into the ground, but I have lost confidence in the consultant to get this job done. And that's what we've asked BC Housing to consider this proposal to break this logjam. Okay, so I am publicly telling you this because I'm sure you've heard things in the community. And I tried to reach out to Eagle Valley and they're not interested in meeting with me. That's fine. That's their choice. Questions?
Yes, Malcolm?
I would just like to say I did attend that meeting as my portfolio with housing, not as a committee member, but as my portfolio was housing, I guess, is the hat. And three very top executives, well, the CEO of BC Housing and the two, one regional guy, and I forget the two regional guys, one transitioning in, one transitioning out of the regional, big area for the region, sort of like interior health region kind of thing. Same area as Bill Miller's Habitat for Man, a huge Alberta border, American border. Anyhow, they allotted, they're busy guys. I say guys because they happen to be all guys. But they give us a half hour, and that's a lot of time in their world. And we had consensus with all three of those guys in 20 minutes. We ended the meeting 10 minutes early. They said, this is a no-brainer. Of course, you guys should be doing that. And we said at our level, there's no Nimbyism on this project because there's no adjacent housing anywhere. Typically, BC Housing runs into three obstacles when they're trying to increase capacity for housing in any community. You got a council that's not cooperative, but we're selling the farm on this one. We're giving everything we possibly can. DCCs, rezoning, subdividing, services, everything. So sometimes it's an uncooperative council. Another key one is there's no land. The land is there. We own it. We're giving it for either Habitat or Eagle Housing Society or both. That's not an issue. And so it's either NIMBYism, land, or an uncooperative council. We have none of those scenarios in this case, and yet we're still log jammed.
I see the win as the commencing fall of 2022, like just moving forward and getting that developed. And that's, I think, key. So thank you. The letter looks good.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, we have the potential as a community to build up to 90 units of housing on that parcel, including our partner Eagle Valley, including their 1 acre, to make it 3.5 in total. I do believe we have the interests of everybody to get that going, but currently right now, it's jammed. And to wait for more money funded by BC Housing is not the answer. You know, Habitat has architects, Habitat has consultants. We have architects, we have consultants. We hire contractors, they're going to hire contractors. We should be working together. This division and this fight has to end. The community suffers, the taxpayer suffers, the costs. There's no need for it. So, thank you for your time. Hopefully we can find a resolution to this.
So Evan, Terry did.
Go ahead. No, it's all right. This is casual. This is casual.
Terry stepped in for a minute and he did mention that Matt had resigned and that you were going to speak to it, and that there's 6 other potential candidates, and
okay,
either Terry's going to.
I wish Matt had stayed on.
Well, I do too. I think he was a great asset to the team. Lack of communication. Anyhow, so is this committee waiting for Terry to make a decision on Matt's replacement? What's happening there?
I haven't talked to Terry about that.
I'm gonna.
I guess the chair can.
I spoke with him and he said that he was going to look through the proponents that he had and make another selection.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jen's online.
There's one.
Corporate officers online.
Oh, corporate officer. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the process is, because the committee was established by the mayor, he has the authority to establish any of the appointments. So it'll be up to Terry to appoint another person.
Thank you. I need different glasses to see at that distance.
What's interesting is Habitat's also come to the table with a solution, and they're being very flexible on how to incorporate these 16 units. They're not trying to wrestle control of the 16 units. They're not trying to steal the funding, nor are we. We're just trying to get units built. In the end, if Eagle Valley wants to operate and maintain and administer, that's fine. We'd like to break ground this fall. I don't want to see that lot sit empty for another 12 to 18 months. We believe we've got a great partner in Habitat. Only 16 units that can easily be built on a ½ acre, full acre at best, including parking. There's no need to give up an acre and a half. I asked for a respectful meeting with the consultant. I was not even given the courtesy of a response. And that's disappointing. That's where my frustration lies. It's more with the consulting team. They just don't accept our involvement. And yet we are the ones who have so far to date, on the 2.5 acres, spent $1.67 million on dirt And we're going to be kicking in easily over $1 million in servicing, including Main Street improvements. We're a big partner in this, and anyways, it's disappointing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sitting in and sharing that with us. And I think the most important thing as a community and as our housing committee is to be able to deliver units quickly. So I think that it should be about the community and units. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll get back to Sarah. You're up. We'll continue our discussion.
Okay, identifying potential barriers. How do we feel with the list we came up with? Barriers with greenfield sites, barriers with brownfield sites, large sites that are privately held and just sitting there vacant, barriers with funding, and do we identify some opportunities? We talked about an opportunity to maybe work with land trusts.
Right.
Anything else we want to add?
Well, you had a list somewhere before on the screen there, some suggested barriers.
See if I can get this to move back. It doesn't agree with me half the time.
Yeah, Nimbyism. So Nimbyism, like I suggested earlier, cooperation of local government, Nimbyism is a big barrier.
So where might we run into that?
Well, it's not housing, but it's the medical center. We're running into Nimbyism.
I think there's potential for that within a residential area. You know, it's like my neighbor on either side are increasing their density, and now I'm going to have twice the neighbors. I can see that as a potential. I feel like the public component of this, like what do you call those sessions? Engagement, public engagement, I feel is possibly a key element to start early with, to let the ideas flow and let them know what we're thinking. Because I think it's important to engage with them more than less.
Like that property in Highway 97 that currently the access is off of Meduca cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And it's 5 acres. So you could put in 130 units, or I don't know how many in there, right? But so Nimbyism usually takes the guise of increased traffic that locals don't want, reduced property values, additional noise, loss of sight lines for their view. All those are forms of parking. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All those are forms of reasons for Nimbyism.
Yeah, I mean, it's important too to look at the format of the housing as well, to try to help overcome that. Try to do something that looks the same as what you've already got, like hidden density potentially, right? Like that's what secondary suites and carriage houses are about. But if you go a step further, looking at formats of townhouses that still feel like single family homes. So maybe they're staggered, so they don't feel as tight, and having them in smaller blocks, not huge, like units. What are some other ways? Those fourplexes from
Invermere there, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look like fourplexes at all.
Yeah.
It can help. I mean, certainly, yeah, like the format, they could end up with reduced front yards. They might not have front yards, right? We probably wouldn't be, necessarily asking for landscaping in a multi-family area. For that, I think the council is actually looking at improving council's ability to improve multifamily at all, to remove all these form of character constraints.
Right.
And I'm not saying this council is particularly picky about that, but that's what multifamily developments can encounter, right? It's like, oh, it needs to look beautiful, and it's got to have all these fancy extra architectural details that add cost, right? To make it fit in with whatever.
And long-term maintenance too, right? When you start putting a lot of extra stuff in, it adds for There is long-term maintenance on that when you look into stratas and stuff in the city.
If you're gonna spend money on something, it should probably be to make sure that it's longevity is.
And
Yes.
another barrier is when you're trying to get funding, BC Housing, well, even specific to this current RC, funding with the Senior Housing Society. One of the key reasons the Housing Society got that funding was amenity to services location. So the further out you get from services, the less likely you're going to get funding. Services and amenities.
Yes.
Being walking distance.
Walkable to services and.
I think Sycamore is well positioned as far as walkability. It does come up.
Well, the current model with BC Housing is mixed amenities, seniors and young families sort of thing. It seems to be a provincial theme. So seniors like Parkview, that's too far. The development on Parkview or Park Crest or whatever it's called. That's not accessible to amenities.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing I did put the service in the package for you guys.
Yeah, I did look at it. Yeah.
So some of the sites that I've served, I'm like, oh, look at all these.
No,
they don't have sewer.
When I say services, I mean close to the pharmacy and the grocery store, that kind of services.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Not infrastructure.
Yes, and what does, like, our community is,
I mean,
like
location.
other ones, right? Like 97A, the river, Trans-Canada Highway, we're kind of like
railway.
3 components, right? So if walkability and accessibility to those key services, banking,
I guess amenities.
Amenities, yeah.
They're considered sewer, water,
So when you look at our footprint of our town, though, it is walkable, but it's crossing that, what the safety of the highways, right?
Railway, highway.
Right.
Definitely a good thing to raise. Like, I've lived here long enough now. I see folks, who have special needs, have their electric, vehicles they used to get around, and they're just taking across the 97A, like,
I know.
a grass berm and down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, but that's sense for them, right?
Right.
We do have a lot of walkability bonuses. We just don't have the kind of infrastructure perhaps we'd like to see across the 97A.
Right.
So that is something that we're working on. We've got our active transportation network program coming. So there's an overlap there. And at some point, we're going to get a master transportation plan done, which would probably look at more serious infrastructure, interfacing with the 97A and the Trans-Canada. Because we have neighborhoods across the Trans-Canada too, but the bulk are on the other side of the 97A. Yeah, so I put on here 97A access barrier.
Right.
To all those
amenities.
Amenities.
Yeah, like grocery store, pharmacy, post office.
Well, I think Trans-Canada is the same if you start looking at TNA and McPherson down there, right?
Worse.
There's no sidewalk there for kids or for anyone to get to the light. It's a bit of a nightmare.
Crazy.
The old people on their scooters.
I mean, the Eagle River has kind of made it difficult on the Trans-Canada, just the way it kind of wants to put in any kind of infrastructure on the side. Like, the shoulder is really small.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're ready to move on to the other exercise, okay.
I can speak to, as the barriers and opportunities go, I think that a big opportunity with our new zoning bylaw upcoming is that we could easily affect a little bit of change on the upcoming zoning bylaw without actually having to rewrite an existing bylaw since it's upcoming. So I just want to maybe emphasize, in my mind's been on this as I read stuff, like, well, we could just do this and then it would get incorporated in the zoning bylaw without actually a big do, but it would need some early focus, obviously, with the timing of the zoning bylaw.
Some things we can do in this time frame. Other things, I think we would actually need to start with the initial committee plan and then do an amendment to the zoning bylaw after it's adopted. I think we could even talk about tools if this is something that sounds worth doing. We can look at what's already being built into the zoning bylaw preemptively, knowing we need housing. But there's obviously a lot. Yeah, next.
I like where you're coming from. I'm just looking at getting a realistic picture of what actually can be affected before we adopt the zoning bylaw. Because I gather that for a place that the OCP already says is medium density zoning, we could just change some of the rezonings to say multifamily where it's already written in the OCP, but in other areas, we wouldn't be able to do it without actually undergoing work.
In this area here, so our single family bulk on this side, it's actually not here, but this is all new, so we're probably not going to be effective here along Shuswap. But here, we would have to amend the OCP. And I'm not sure that there's really time in this time frame to do it, to do something that big. But yeah, I think you might be interested to go over what we've done with the zones that do support it. Like here, we've written in, how many units in the town center? At least 5, if not more.
Yeah.
So our basic, so our C1 and C2 commercial zones are base zones. There's some density built in there, the medium density.
Yeah, I think just definitely, I mean, Malcolm named those lots on Martin and Temple. There's a few areas then where we could possibly upgrade some R1 to multifamily residential where the lots are, I mean, half acre is plenty big for multifamily residential. There's no benefit to having that zoned as a single family. Really, is there?
Well, I live in insurance. So this did come up at the planning and development committee meeting. Like one's in the Riverside transition area, which so that Riverside transition area looks to move a lot of the marine supported kind of light industrial uses that are kind of on the water and down here by the bridge into this area instead and open this up for more residential resort type recreational uses of the water. And there's a lot of single family zoned properties here that have single family on them. But what we've heard in our public consultations say on Shuswap Ave, so there's a couple who came in, they have a well-kept property on Shuswap in our town center. Their insurance is really high because the property is zone C1. It's just a house.
Oh.
And they live in it?
And they live there. It might have been the old, one of the places the RCP used to be, maybe. One of the sites.
Oh, yeah, there is another old police station.
But so their insurance, they pay a lot more. And we heard that too.
But can't they go to
for short-term rentals or like the properties that are zone C1 that have a house, like you want to use that, like I say, they're looking for properties.
I think
Again, insurance was.
I think they need some advice because when I moved into my place, it was zone commercial and I got assessed commercial taxes and I called BC Assessment, answered a couple of questions. I got my revised assessment for residential. It was
for residential
because it's rural. This
is the actual land.
Yeah, the use was residential, so no issue.
That's taxes versus insurance.
Well, it's taxes, right? It's taxes.
Well, I also do pay residential insurance based on that because it's a house.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about. I should have a word with them because I don't think that shouldn't be a problem.
And it was basically a question that needed to be put to council on the planning and development committee, like, do we upzone these properties?
Well, I think
it's
that
not affect taxes, right? There'll be taxes, there's special insurance.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to look at this all through a real residential lens, and then we can let Councillor Malmas rip it apart at a planning meeting.
It's something worth flagging, like I'm all like, as a planner, like, yeah, whatever council wants to do.
But it makes sense what
go for it.
Ryan said, you know, you can just call BC Assessment and get your assessment changed for property tax from commercial to residential because you live in their residential, not running a business. And then from that, you should be able to talk to your insurer and say, no, look, BC Assessment is treating this as residential, so insurance should be residential.
I unfortunately don't know enough about how insurance works.
We'll try to run.
You said you pay residential insurance, right?
Wait, sure I do. It's only a couple $1,000 a year. It's not.
That sounds residential.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So it may just be people need to shop around.
More knowledge.
I think, yeah, the insurer needs to go out to the site. That's what I've had done at mine.
Well, no insurer will say you could pay less.
Yeah.
A good, honest one would.
Yeah, so I guess I was looking at our process and where we're hoping to be by October.
Right.
Makes sense. So
Yes.
some changes to this group in October, but I was wondering if we couldn't bump up that process for some zoning related stuff to squeeze it in a convenient timeline to have a little bit of effect on.
Yeah, like so tools, we could talk about it in tools, because one of our tools is zoning.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Is that early enough or do you need another meeting soon?
Well, I found like your commentary is pretty invaluable. I'd rather sit here in front of the group for a short time and work chew on it for a month and come back with some new stuff where it's convenient. So I'll try to, I think I can probably fit questions I have within your categories.
I know our last meeting went for like 2 hours.
Yes.
And so do you think we should meet more often? And have with shorter sessions?
I'm good. I mean, I'm good either way myself. I don't mind spending time, but if it expedites the process though, like if we can get through stuff in smaller segments and do it more often and we get there quicker, then maybe that's a valid point.
Group emails, like you can do that too though.
Okay.
I certainly don't mind to send you an email and then it can get broadcast.
I'm always open.
Except I always.
Okay.
Questions are always,
Okay.
especially once the agenda goes out, I'm always like, hey, you're gonna email me questions. Guys.
I did do all my pre-reading. But I like Ryan's idea, you know, when I looked at all your timelines, thank you for organizing us. That's appreciated, because we'd be floundering. Well, I would. But yeah, can we condense those down somehow? Because if this committee had already been existing for 2 or 3 years, and then we're just dealing with nuances or little tweaks here and there, we wouldn't have to meet as often. But I think as we're building the foundation that of what we're going to recommend to council to hopefully adopt, they're anxiously waiting, and the community needs housing, and we're in some timelines that aren't artificial, they're real. So I'm up to meeting twice a month instead of once a month, just at the front end, you know, to get things done, and then we could slack it off to every 6 weeks maybe after that, or who knows. But at the front, I agree with Ryan. I'm not looking for more work, but it's important what we're trying to do here, I think. And we should get it done quicker than sooner than later.
And I agree with that. I absolutely think we just need to start making decisions, and that, you know, we need absolutely all the information, but if we can get the information quicker, that we can make those decisions to get this moving forward. You know, like Evan said, Sam and Arm's 3 years ahead of us, and we started on the same spot, you know, and they're a bigger town, and there's a lot of different reasons behind that. But, you know, this has been a crisis in Sycamoose for a while. So I'm fine meeting more, and I think that we can probably get more done quickly.
Okay, so.
I don't think you need a resolution. It's not leaving the group.
Okay, I was just going to ask is Jen, can you weigh in on that?
Hi, sorry, yes, I'm here, but can you repeat the question?
We want to change our schedule at the front end now of this committee meeting twice a month. So sure. From the first to the first and the third week of the month. Sure. Do we need any kind of a resolution or motion to do that?
Absolutely, you would. So through the chair, you would need to amend your terms of reference. So what could happen is you could pass a resolution right now, then another meeting be held at the next date that you choose, which I'm assuming would be the third Thursday. And then at that meeting, revised terms of reference can come forward. Does that make sense, that process that I just said?
It does. I think, yes.
So for today, just a resolution that Housing Committee meeting be scheduled for the third Thursday of May.
May the 19th.
Okay with May the 19th?
Yeah. Do I have?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
You'll make the motion, okay. Add Malcolm's name to that. I'll second. Ryan will second it. All in favor? Carried.
Okay.
Okay, we're get her done.
All right. I like it.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Okay, so. Exercise. Just making sure that we have a list of partners as possible at this time. We'll discover more strategies, but something to start with so that we can write some rough strategies work from later. So do you guys already have lists? Did you put them together?
I do.
Up here.
Okay, you want me to read mine? Mine's pretty long, and then you can add what I missed.
See what you missed, if
Okay,
anything.
I've got the DOSDC assisting us in partnering. TA structures, ASCUs, AIM Roads Division.
Some of the odd ones. Can we go back after and
Yes.
tell me how you think?
Oh, how they would fit in? Okay, all right, okay.
AIM Roads.
AIM Roads, Habitat for Humanity, Bayview Homes, Mara Hills.
Are they a developer as well?
Yeah, that's the new golf course. They purchased Tide. Yeah, Mara Hills. Saskew. Sycamoose Housing Society. Twin Anchors Houseboats.
Is that the same as TA
No.
structures? Okay.
CMHC. BC Housing. And Walmart. Or whatever group that is their transfer station. Is it? Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they went under another name. R1 residential homeowner landowners as an alternate. So what we talked about. And that's it. And then I categorized them as seasonal funding. And so who did I miss, Malcolm?
Well, let's go. Ryan, did you have any additions?
Well, I was clumping a little more. Like I think
Okay.
Local employers and local landowners are.
You did the umbrella thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's some big ones to pull out of there. I mean, obviously our bigger employers are good partners for building fourplexes and sixplexes that are going to include some rental properties that might be good way, yeah, get some commitment to them for dollars so that they can tie up some units.
What do they call that? A door deposit?
Ooh, did read that.
Oh, I like it.
Like I'll put that in my mouth. Local developers. I mean, like Greg Darrow, we didn't really partner up with him, but he's a lot of mobile homes going into town because of him. And we should, I hear he has another piece of residential land. Maybe he'll want to develop that.
And I think in those cases, it would help to have stronger language in our official community plans so that the district can actually initiate those kind of relationships, like enter into things like housing agreements. Yeah.
I think that it seems to me that in an ideal scenario, he looks like he's building a really profitable trailer park out there. I'm not sure. Just need to make sure stuff is zoned right and try to create situations where it counts in dollars for these folks to do stuff.
It's got to be serviced though too, and I mean he's selling that whole area is his, right? So he's brought in all the servicing.
Yeah.
To make that happen.
Yeah, I'd like to do the same thing for people that own a half acre and would be interested in selling it to a developer that would want to put a 4 or 6plex on it, or becoming part of a development where they're an investor with the land and want to get a 4 or 6plex. I just want to know that
Right.
Not have the developer come in to ask us about it, but know that they're good to go and build units on their property like that. I think our
Zoning.
and the zoning's pretty clear and the parking regulations are pretty clear. I think it's all pretty good.
When we identify all these spots that are possible land to develop, do we reverse the role where the district reaches out to them and said, we're working on our housing strategy and we're looking for, you know?
We may end up with like more generic language
Okay.
where someone hasn't already approached the district and identified themselves as
Right.
someone to work with. Like it seemed kind of weird to be like, oh, we're gonna work with this person to do this. And they're like, oh, you just see me in your strategy? I haven't agreed to this. Right? So it might end up being language like you're saying.
Okay.
The district will work with local developers to partner with provide services zoning or something, those kind of statements. Yeah.
So a couple other ones. Sorry, Ryan, were you done?
yes.
DOS, we never mentioned DOS.
I've got them as an in-kind partner. Yeah.
I thought you meant the DevCorp, but not DOS.
We love to.
I thought you were but we got.
But we do need the DOS.
DOS.
Here as an in-kind partner.
Through them, we could access municipal funding authority or whatever. British Columbia Not-for-Profit Housing Association.
Ooh, good one.
They have tons of templates, building designs, and all the non-for-profits that belong to that association. There's just a huge resource of ready for construction housing plans. And not just housing plans, but plans for operating housing after they're built, plans for maintenance, plans for landscaping. It's all boilerplate. We don't have to reinvent it. There's best practices there, huge. And BC SPI. Any bites? What that might be?
Yeah, BC.
Thinking Bob might know that. No?
SP. BC.
British Columbia Social Procurement
Oh.
Initiative or Impact. I'm not sure what the I stands for. So that's a group that Jen, we were exposed to during SILGA, Southern Ontario Local Government Association Convention. And I went to one of their workshops and I'm going to recommend it to council. I think Jen's going to cost $375 to sign up for the year. And so they have also templates and they'll come and they'll train staff or a group like yourselves how to do social procurement and not just buy local. It's ethical procurement too, sourcing materials and it goes way deeper than just buy local, if you will. It's social procurement, which has a direct feedback into the community for. It's the best value, not the lowest cost sometimes. And that's not just for, it goes as far as employees or sourcing materials or the way you develop contracts to, like, a good example would be we're leasing some land to Eco Valley Senior Citizens Housing Society. We could have put a covenant on that or a housing agreement attached by covenant on that and say, we're giving you this land, but it has to be used specifically for this. And as you develop affordable housing on it, it has to be developed through a social procurement process. Just an example.
Do you have any more?
That's it.
We haven't heard from me yet.
Nope, I'm listening.
It's $375 a year to belong to that association. And they'll come and they'll train staff on it for free and give you templates and stuff like that. It's pretty.
That sounds really cool, at least in terms of maybe setting up, you know, if Sycamoose needed a nonprofit society to handle any housing that was developed. These sound like really good resources, right? Like there's Sycamoose Housing Society.
Well, it's a great resource for like Sycamoose Housing Society to get all their templates in place as a new society because they're already there.
Rock Valley Seniors Housing Society still.
Valley.
Eagle Valley.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ooh, whoops, that was close.
Senior Housing. SH.
Eagle Valley Senior Citizens Housing Society. Good call there, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the next part of the exercise is really to start getting people, getting us thinking about how these people could be partners in the provision of housing, and to start getting an understanding of how the relationship works with the district and how the district can support those partnerships through its strategy, right? So the next part, I had made a table that was, the idea was to be able to develop, like what Siobhan was talking about last meeting, these tables that set out, this is the goal, these are the partners that can help achieve this goal, and this is when we think this goal is achievable by, right? So that when we go back, so every 5 years, the district has to do a new housing needs assessment. And when we go back in that sort of minimum period, we could do something shorter, if necessary, but in terms of measuring how successful we were.
Yeah, well, and I think people should be fined if they don't follow through. But no, if you have an agreement with someone and they don't follow through, they should know the consequences before they go in. And just like we talk about taxing people higher that aren't using their lands here, same thing happens, right? That you're taxed higher, or you owe, we say, okay, we gave you 15% off putting in your sewer lines, that you owe us that.
You just mean that the strategy isn't quite right. There are barriers that we didn't know about or identify early on, and then try to plan our strategy to overcome those barriers. So like the market itself is right. So land is expensive. How do we overcome that barrier? Right. So I mean, we've got all kinds of developments around town it's just a foundation. Why did they stop when the market fell out? Yeah. Right. So there's one barrier. So I think
that's a huge exercise what you're talking about there.
Oh, for doing this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily have to do that, but I think like for some of these I think we know what their role is. CMHC, their role for funding, their partner for getting housing built, some of the BC housing. This time they've given us like why these other ones are valuable. So I mean, SASCU, I imagine they might be an eager funding partner.
They may be. I kind of categorized mine as far as major employers. They employed over 15, at least 15 people. That's why a lot of them are on the list.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then the seasonal ones, which I identified as Mara Hills, Twin Acres houseboats, could be Sycamoose houseboats. We should actually include them as well. That was missed. Are really am I missing something? Like those are the ones I identified as they're seasonal. So do they invest in staff housing and creating staff housing, and do we do it jointly?
Oh, I see what
where they own you own 10 units in this building, you own 10 units in this building. So we partner and pull together funding, and
that's the new model these days, that businesses are creating accommodations for their staff. Otherwise they can't operate as a business because they don't get staff.
Right.
So if we had 50 units, maybe 5 could go for, Askews and 2 for Ames and 3 for the golf course and that kind of thing.
Right. And for this,
they actually invest.
They actually invest in it. So as the employers, they partner with a contractor and land developer and maybe the housing hub, or bring the multi thing together. And I think we kind of chatted a little bit about that.
Yeah, like I think one of our studies from the webinars.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they sign into a sort of like a housing agreement. They say, yeah, I'll take 3 units, and they sign off saying that I promise this is what those units are going to be used for, and follow the conditions and all that sort of thing.
Right, and then they supply that housing to their seasonal staff. But
that makes sense for me. I think that explains the ones that I was like, what is their role?
You know, like an example, like across the street here at Crestview, Moose Mulligan's has bought a unit in there. A&W has bought a unit in there for staff.
Yeah, the mill.
So on new construction.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, well, I feel like this is a good segue to get into our case studies. We'll maybe give Scott a chance to
speak. Okay.
through the chair.
Yes, sure. Let's.
Yeah, so Brian, you brought up like the zoning bylaw as a tool that we can use right now. And so we can think about that. And then, yeah, here's an example of a employer who was having trouble getting housing for employees and couldn't keep employees because of that. So Best Western approached us with their idea. So they're looking to build a second building, looking to add 40 units, and they were looking at adding like a residential use instead of just the hotel units. So in our new zoning bylaw, we added, so here's the density that they're permitted. So the minimum density of dwelling units is 60 units per hectare, and it's and they actually did rezone with a tourist accommodation and multifamily. So they rezone their property for that. And in the new zone, we've added an amenity bonus, and it's for the provision of each attainable rental dwelling unit, density may be increased as per the general regulations. So then we go to the, so there it is right there. And then in the general regulations, to address District 6 affordable housing strategy and subject to housing agreement as per section 463 of the Local Government Act, the provision of one attainable rental unit is equivalent to an increase in density of 2 dwelling units or 4 sleeping units. So basically, in that zone, Best Western, if they provide one attainable housing unit, and that's through an agreement, a housing agreement with the District 6, we give them a bonus. They could build 2 extra dwelling units or 4 extra sleeping units. We also have a reduced parking for attainable housing. And we haven't actually added a number to that, but that's another one that we could use where right now it's you need two parking spots for every dwelling unit. We could say if you're providing attainable housing, maybe it's a 1 bedroom unit, then we'd say you only need to provide 1 parking spot. So with Best Western, so right now the density is 60 dwelling units per hectare. And then the bonus is they have 1 attainable unit, and that equals 2 dwelling units or 4 sleeping units. So they have half a hectare. Their density would be 30 units. They've proposed to add 10 attainable units through that housing agreement. So then that would give them a 20 unit bonus. So they'd be able to build 50 units as opposed to the 30 units they could. And then 10 of those would be available for attainable housing. We're actually, the property's been rezoned. There's a development permit councils can be considering at the next council meeting. And in that development permit, we have that writing again that they're going to be providing that attainable housing. And then when the new zoning bylaws adopted, anybody in that C2 zone would have that opportunity to, when they're developing their property, if they provide 1 unit, they get that 2 unit bonus. And we're going to put this in all the multifamily and commercial zones. So on Riverside, where we're getting approached by people who are looking to add units, then here's a way to get a little higher density. Right now, we're suggesting a 10-year time frame where those units have to be maintained as attainable dwelling units. What that's going to look like, I don't know. Part of this group will be helping us decide who is eligible for that attainable housing. We're not calling it affordable housing. The owner of Best Western, he's made it clear that it's not to be subsidized housing. So it's not like people are going to be getting some of their rent paid as a subsidy. It's going to be just kind of like a market rate attainable housing. It's available for workers he's doing it because he needs the units for his workers. And then, so I imagine he'll be keeping some of those units for himself, and he'll essentially be paying that rent and providing it for the workers. The workers will be paying that. But then I think the idea could be that it could be made available to other people in town, maybe other employers in town. And then, yeah, so then we'd have 10 units, 10 years that are at market rate. And this group would help decide who's eligible to live in those units.
Good.
You see, we're making changes to the commercial zoning to allow for that density bonusing.
Right, so it is in the zones right now. So this is in the C2 zone. So there's an amenity bonus on 10. So kind of in the last section of each of the commercial zones, there's that amenity bonus. And then in that section 3.7 kind of explains that amenity bonus. I think there is also amenity bonuses for the provision of parkland. If for additional parkland, you get extra density. I think before there was an amenity bonus, if you contributed for every $2,500 you contribute to a fund for a boat for firefighting, you got an extra unit of density. That was removed when the district decided they no longer want to provide that boat, but it's the same idea where, and developers, you get an extra unit, it's more valuable often than any other incentive.
Yeah, $350,000 a unit or whatever that could be, right?
Right.
I like that. That is so, and is a dwelling unit versus a sleeping unit. Is that like a 1-bedroom suite or 2-bedroom suite versus like a motel room?
So a dwelling unit would be like a unit for a family to live, like
okay.
A full-time home. A sleeping unit is a tourist accommodation, so
okay,
motel room.
Okay. Comments? No? Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good to move on. Our example housing strategy.
It's work in progress.
So we have the one from Quinnell, and so Quinnell was a really interesting example. It was just the housing strategy, but it came out of this very comprehensive document that was kind of the basis for the new regulations for how we have to do housing needs assessments now. So they started with an assessment, figured out exactly how many of what kind of units, and then they built their strategy. It's this massive, beautiful, gorgeous document that if you're store. So what I gave you was their housing action plan. One of the things I really liked about it is that they're very specific about what the goal is. So rather than having really open statements, they're being more specific. So it's like, okay, so we are priority groups, seniors. Okay, we're gonna do specifically of this. We'll have a zone specifically for seniors housing. We have specific sites in town that we designate for it, rather than saying really few things like, oh, we'll work with developers to do this. It's more like, this is where it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. Very specific. It's one of the things that I really liked about it. And then they also did, so for each of their goals, so we currently have sort of 3 draft goals that I drafted up and from our last meeting. So combined all those statements. So they would have a table under each one of the goals, identifying a strategy, and then identifying how each strategy could be completed just really kind of laid it out. So when we looked at the one that City Spaces did for Golden last month, it was a little more open and airy-fairy and floofy compared to this one. This one was done by Urbanics.
Yeah, I like the more specifics myself. I mean, for the mission statement or vision statement, I like the generic. But when we start to drill deeper, yeah, we need something tangible and measurable.
Tangible, measurable, like where you're going.
Yeah, and they've got actions for each one of their
They do
goals, right? That I liked, and so I.
My book. Oh, sorry. No. So if you flip to it and have a look. I was thinking of you, Siobhan.
Yes.
So, yeah, I really liked that. And if you guys like it, we could try to follow that model when we start drafting up stuff.
I would agree.
We need to log out of the Zoom.
Okay.
So I can do
We've
that.
timed out,
Yeah.
2-hour meeting.
So our last item, we're just talking about the webinar that if anybody's able to attend that workforce housing webinar, and we're just sharing anything that we wanted to